Muse for you, awesome websites without code.
Hey, what's up, Muser? This is John at Muse for You, here to help you build awesome websites without code. And today we're on day 5, section 2 of the Building a Chef website in Adobe Muse. So here we have the day 5, section 2 folder in the course folder. So here I'll double click, and here we have the assets for the day, and we have the PDF, the day 5, section 2 PNG, the completed section, the section 2 completed, and the section text. So for day 5, if I click on the PNG, we're going to create the section 2 layer and add the section 2 elements. So I'll go back here. So I'll go back to the root folder of the course folder, and the first thing we want to do is double click on the chef website starting file .muse. So here I'll double click, and I'll double click on the home page. And here we have the website. So we've added the header with the menu and the logo, section 1, and the footer. So the first thing we're going to do before we start adding elements to section 2 is we're going to add the section 2 layer in the layers panel. So right now your layers should look like this: header, section 1, and footer. So we're in the layers panel, so let's just open the layers panel again. So I'll open it up, and to create a new layer, you'll click here at the bottom. We have this new layer icon that looks like a piece of paper with a folded corner, so just click there, and then a new layer will be created. So here it created it under section 1, which is where we want it, but if you find that it's not under section 1, you want to click, hold, and drag that new layer that was created under section 1. So here I'll double click, and because we want to rename the layer, and I'll rename it to section 2. Alright, so the layers panel should now look like this: header, section 1, section 2, and footer. So again, if section 2 is not under section 1, just click, hold, and drag and bring under section 1. Then go ahead and click on section 2, because any elements that we're going to add will now be added to section 2 because we have it selected here. So now let's open up the PDF and take a look at the completed section with the comments. So I'll go back to the course folder, I'll click on day 5, section 2, and here we have the PDF. Chef website section 2, museforyou.pdf. So here I'll double click, and I'll scroll down, and here we have the section 2 with the comments. So we have chilies, we have leaf and coffee beans image, and the tomato image. So I've already printed out the comments, and I do go over how to print out the comments on day 1, part 4, and also on the header and footer section. So I have the comments right here in front of me, so we'll go ahead and get started with adding the elements. So the first element we're going to add is these chilies here. We're going to add this leaf and coffee beans and this tomato. So I'll go back into Muse, and I'll open the Finder. We'll go to the assets folder, so I'll double click, and here we have the chilies.png. So I'm going to go ahead and move the Finder to the right, and I'll click, hold, and drag the chilies.png into Adobe Muse. So here I have the image. I'll go to the transform panel, and on the x-axis it's at 0, the y is at 1241, and the width is 203 by 408. The responsive pinning is set to the left, and the resize is set to none. Okay, and then we have the chilies in a nice position. So now let's bring in the leaf and coffee beans. So here we have the leaf and coffee beans.png. So I'm going to click, hold, and drag into Adobe Muse. I'll go to the transform panel, and it's at 649 by 1463 on the y-axis. So yeah, 649 on the x, 1463 on the y, and the width is 257 by 159, and we're going to pin it responsively in the center, and the resize is set to none. Okay, and there we have the leaf and the coffee beans, and the next image we're going to add is the tomato image. So in the assets we have tomato.png. So I'll click, hold, and drag, place right into Adobe Muse, go to the transform panel, and we're going to set it to 1235 on the x and 1615 on the y. The width is 365 by 248, and we're going to pin it to the right, responsive pin to the right, and the resize is going to be set to none. So there we have the chilies, the leaf and coffee beans, and the tomato. I'm going to go ahead and go to File, Preview Page in Browser, because this is really going to show the power of the responsive pinning in Adobe Muse. So here we have the chilies, the leaf, and the tomato. And if I resize the browser, we notice the chilies stay at the left, the leaf and coffee beans stay relative to the center of the browser, and the tomato stays to the right of the browser. So that is the power of the responsive pinning. It really is very helpful when designing a responsive website in Adobe Muse. So the other thing I'm going to go over very quickly is the page expansion again, because if we notice, if I make this full screen, I'm on a 27-inch iMac, and we notice the chilies stay to the left and the tomato stay to the right no matter how large the browser gets. So, and that's due to the page expansion. So the page expansion is what allows us to do that. And the page expansion are these arrows right here. So if you click, you can have them point inwards, which means that the page won't expand beyond the largest breakpoint, which is 1600. Or if you click the arrows outward, this means that the page will expand beyond the largest breakpoint. And you have the arrows here to the left and to the right of the breakpoints bar. So I'm going to go ahead and make the arrows point inwards so the page won't expand beyond 1600. And let's see how that looks. So I'll go to File, Preview Page in Browser. And here it looks okay, but if I make the browser full screen, we see that the chilies and the tomato don't go beyond 1600, the 1600 pixel breakpoint. So it stops kind of abruptly here on the sides, and it doesn't go all the way to the right and to the left. So if I go back into Muse and we set the page expansion back to outward, so the arrows are pointing outwards, meaning the page will expand beyond the largest breakpoint. And I go to File, Preview Page in Browser, and I make the browser full screen. And I scroll down, we can see that the chilies are all the way to the left of the browser and the tomato is all the way to the right of the browser. So this is really useful because you can have elements positioned correctly even on really large screens. So I do like the page expansion, and I think it's a great tool to use in Adobe Muse. Alright, so now let's continue with adding more elements to the website. Let's go ahead and add the tiramisu image. I really like tiramisu. So here we have tiramisu.jpg. So here I'll click, hold, and drag and place into Adobe Muse. And let's go to the transform panel. So on the X, the tiramisu is at 0. And oops, let's do that again, 0. And on the Y, it is at 1624. So you'll notice in the comments, and if we go to the PDF, let's go here to the PDF, and we hover over the comments, we can see that it says crop and then yes. This means we're gonna resize the image by cropping and not by resizing. So just as an example, if I go back into Muse and let's say I change the width of the element to, on the comments it says 800. If I change it to 800 and I look at the element, we can see that it skews the element. So basically, if we try to resize like this, the element gets skewed. Or if we resize without holding, I was holding shift to just resize the width, or if we resize without holding shift, it resizes the element, the width and the height of the element. For this, we're going to crop the element to 800 by 640. So let me just undo all those changes. So initially it's at 942 by 640, and now we're going to crop the image to be at 800 in width and 640 in height. So it's already 640 in height, so we just need to change the width to 800. So here I'm going to select the crop tool right here, and I'm going to go here on the image, and I'm going to drag in from the left. So when we select the crop tool, it just crops the image, and we want to pay attention to the transform panel on the left. And once it reaches 800 pixels in width, we'll stop. So it's almost there. And let me zoom in here into Muse a bit, and a little bit more till we get to 800. There we go, perfect. All right, so there the image is cropped at 800 by 640. If we look at the transform panel, the width is 800 and the height is 640. So I'll go ahead and select the selection tool, and I can hold down shift to move this to the left side of the browser so it's flush to the left, or you can set it to 0 on the X axis. All right, and if you wanted to move the image within the image container here, you can double click on the image and you can just move it around within that 800 by 640 image container that we cropped. All right, perfect. So there we have the tiramisu, and I might move it in a little bit to the left. Yeah, that looks good right there. Perfect. All right, so now we've added the tiramisu image. Let's add the About Us gradient. So for this, I'm going to use the gradient text widget found at museforyoushop.com. If you don't have access to this widget or are not able to access it, you can simply create text and just use the formatting that we'll be using for this text. So to access the gradient text widget, I'm going to go to the library panel here to the right, and I'm going to type in gradient text. All right, and here we have the gradient text widget, and here I'll click, hold, and drag and place into Adobe Muse. All right, and then we're going to work with the widget options. So I'll zoom in here, and you want to click on the blue circle with the arrow to bring out the widget options. And I'll click in here. So I'll just follow the comments here within the PDF, or the PDF comments. The instance number is 1. The paragraph tag is an H2 subhead. The text is about us, so capital A, capital U. The font is in EM, so it's 2.81 EM. So 1 EM equals 16 pixels, so this is about 42 pixels. The font weight is none. The letter spacing is 1. Line height is 1. The text transform is none, and the text align is to the left. And now let's work with the gradient. So I'll click on the gradient section here in the widget. The gradient angle is 0, and color 1 is this pink color here that we've added to the swatches panel. And color 2 is this peach color here that we've also added to the swatches panel. All right, and the IE fallback, so Internet Explorer doesn't support gradient text, so I'll just change this to black so it's really visible on Internet Explorer browsers. All right, and there we go. We've added the About Us text, and now we want to change the font type. So to do that, just make sure the widget is selected, the About Us or the gradient text widget, and then go to the text panel here to the left, click the drop down, and the text is Roboto Light. And here I'll click on Roboto Light, and we'll go back to the widget, and we can see that it's changed to Roboto Light. Now let's go to the transform panel and change the properties here in the transform panel. So on the X, it's at 855. On the Y, it's at 1696. The width is 200, and the height is 56. And there's no responsive pinning, and there's no responsive pinning here, and the resize is set to none. All right, perfect. So there we have the About Us. When you bring in the widget container, when it becomes smaller, the gradient shows a bit more because there's less gradient background for the text to be on. So you can just picture like a gradient behind the text, and when it gets shorter in width, we have a nicer gradient so that the text goes from that pink color to that kind of peach color. So now let's add the gradient text underline, so the About Us underline. So for this, we'll select the rectangle tool, and we'll go under About Us and just create a rectangle. It can be a small rectangle. And then let's go to the transform panel, and on the X, it's at 855. The Y is at 1752. The width is 72 by 2. The height is 2. There's no responsive pinning, and the resize is set to none. Then for the fill, we're going to use the built-in gradient within Adobe Muse. So we're going to go to fill here in the upper control bar. We're going to select gradient, and the first color is this pink color, and the second color is this peach color here. All right, and the focal point 50%, direction horizontal, and the size automatic. Looks good. All right, so that's it for the underline. So now if we go to the About Us, we have the About Us text and this nice underline here below it, this nice gradient underline. All right, so now let's go to the heading text. So here in the PDF, we have this heading text and this paragraph. So I'll go back into Muse, and we'll just select the text tool right up here and just create some text. So with the text within the assets folder, if I go back to day 5, section 2, we have what's called section text. So if I double click, it tells us the About Us text. So we have the title and the paragraph. So I can just copy this lorem ipsum text, which is basically placeholder text because we don't have any real text on the website at the moment. So it's just placeholder text. And what I'll do is I'll copy that by holding down Command C, and I'll paste right in here by holding down Command V, and I'll highlight this text here. I'll zoom in maybe a little bit. And the formatting for this is Roboto Light, and the size is 22. The color is this 09090A that we added to the swatches panel, and the text transform is uppercase, and that is about it for that text. And now let's go to the transform panel, and the x-axis is at 857, the y is at 1829, the width is at 543, and the height is 26. Okay, there's no responsive pinning, and the resize is set to none. So yep, none right there. Okay, and then we have the text, and now let's add the paragraph text. So I'll select the text tool, and I'll just create a text box. I'll go to the section text. Here we have the paragraph text. So I'll just copy this. After paragraph, hold down Command C to copy, or Control C if you're on Windows. And I'll just double click into the text box to bring up the cursor, and I'll select Command V to paste. Then I'll select this text, I'll highlight it. You can hold down Command A to highlight all, or just highlight it with your mouse here. Then I'll go to the text panel. The formatting for this is Roboto Slab, and the font size is 15. The text color is that 09090A, and it's aligned to the left. There's no text transform, and the leading here is 160%, and the leading is the spacing in between the lines within the text, and it's depicted by these arrows pointing up and down and these 3 lines, so there'll be more spacing in between the lines within the paragraph. So I'll say 160%. Then we'll go to the transform panel, and we'll say 857 for the X, and for the Y we'll say 1889, and the width is 543, and the height is 240, and there's no responsive pinning, and the resize is set to none. Alright, so there we have the paragraph, we have the gradient text, the underline, the title text, and the paragraph text. So let's see how this looks like in the browser. So let me zoom out a bit, and I'll go to File, Preview Page in Browser, and I'll scroll down, and looks good. If we resize the browser, we'll notice, one thing we didn't do with the tiramisu image, we didn't say resize none. So you want to make sure that the tiramisu is set to resize none. So let's preview that again. You notice that it was set to responsive width and height, so the image was changing size as we resized the browser. So here, one thing you notice, if I resize the browser, the text goes over the image, and that's going to be adjusted when we add breakpoints, and then we change the layout of the elements on those different breakpoints. You'll notice we didn't use any responsive pinning for About Us, because I do like the way it's positioned normally without any responsive pinning. I like the position relative to the tomato and the leaf, so I didn't set any responsive pinning to About Us, because I felt it already had good positioning away from the different elements there when the browser is set to full screen. All right, so let's go back into Muse, and let's go to the PDF, and the next thing we'll add the entree image here. So this image here, so we'll go into the Finder, we'll go into the assets, and here we have entree.jpg. So here I'll click, hold, and drag, place into Adobe Muse, and let's work with the transform panel. So on the X, it's at 661, and the Y is at 2332, and the responsive pinning is set to the right. Resize is set to none. Perfect. And we see that it says crop yes, so we're going to change the width to 939 by 745 by cropping. So here we have the image, so I'm going to go ahead and select the crop tool right up here. So it's the hand with that little symbol, and we'll go here, and I'm just going to drag in from the right until it's flush with the right side of the browser, just like that, and it automatically adjusts it to the width of 939, which is what is in the comments. And then I'll drag down from the bottom until the height is at 745. I might have to zoom in a bit here. That's 742, maybe even a bit more. There we go, 745. Perfect. And now I'll double click into the image and just move it around until it fits nicely within that image container. And I think that looks pretty good. Maybe up a little bit more. And perfect. I like the way that looks. So now if we click on the image container, the width is 939 by 745, and it's nicely cropped within that image container. Perfect. So there we have the image, and now let's add the salad image. So We've added the entree image, and now if we go to the PDF, we have the salad image here to the left. So for this, I'm going to go into the assets, click on salad.jpg. I'm going to click, hold, and drag, place into Adobe Muse. I'll go to the transform panel, and the salad is at 2356 on the X. No, it's at 0 on the X, and the Y is 2356. Okay, and the width is 633 by 698, and it's pinned to the left. The responsive pinning is to the left, and the resize is none. So for this, we actually don't need to crop it. It just fits nicely within that area and looks good. So if you notice, if we click on all the elements we've recently added, they have this dark blue border around them if you select them, and that's just letting you know what layer it's on. If we click on, let's say any of these elements up here, they have a light blue border around them. So if we go to the layers panel, you'll notice the colors. So we have light blue for section 1, these little tabs here on the left, and we have this dark blue for section 2. If you find as you're creating the elements that there's different colored borders around these elements, then you just want to go to your layers panel and make sure that the elements are in the correct layer. So far all the elements have been added to section 2 because we selected it before we started adding elements, and all the elements are in section 2, so that looks good. So the layers panel should look like this, and you might have different colors. It depends on how you add the layers. Sometimes different colors get assigned to different layers. All right, so now the last bit is adding the nutrition text. So I'll go to the PDF, and we have this nutrition with this paragraph and this text here, or these icons and the lorem ipsum text. So I'll go back into Muse, and for this we're going to use a little shortcut. So rather than recreating everything, we're just going to select About Us. I'll zoom in a bit. Select About Us, the underline, and this paragraph here. And then I'll hold down Command-C to copy, or Control-C if you're on Windows. And I'll do Command-V to paste. And I'll just place it around here. And then I'll just work with the gradient options here, the gradient text widget. So I'll click on the blue circle with the arrow to bring out the widget options. And here, instead of About Us, I'll just type in nutrition. And that looks good. And then for the paragraph text, I'll go to the section text. And then here we have nutrition text, and the paragraph is right here. So I'll hit Command-C to copy. Go back into Muse, double click in the paragraph, hit Command-A to select all, and then Command-V to paste. And just like that, we have all the elements added, and now we just need to reposition with the transform panel. So here I'll go to the transform. The nutrition gradient text is at 214. The Y is at 2428. The width is at 200, and the height is 56. And the responsive pinning is set to the center. The resize is set to none. All right, looks good. And then we'll select the underline right here. And for the X, it's at 214. The Y is at 2484. And the width is 72 by 2. The pin to page is in the center. Responsive set to none. Then we have the paragraph text here, so I'll select it, go to the transform panel. The X is at 214, so we have 214. The Y is at 2554. The width is 443. The height is 72. And it's pinned to the center, responsive pin to the center, resize none. All right, and there we have it, looks good. And there we go. So we've added the nutrition text, and we have the About Us text, the different images, and perfect. So now, if we go back to the PDF, we have these icons here with this lorem ipsum text. I'm just going to add 2 icons and 2 lorem ipsum, and then I'm going to fast forward to these, and I'm going to let you just add the rest here as well from the comments, from the PDF or the comments. It lets you know exactly where all of these elements are placed. So I'll go back into Muse, I'll go to the Finder, and I'll bring in the chicken icon here. So here I'll click, hold, and drag, place right in there, and I'll just position it somewhere in here. I'll go to the transform panel, and for the icon, it's at 214. The Y is at 2707. The width is 45 by 23. The responsive pinning set to the center, and the resize is set to none. All right, perfect. And there we go. And then I'll just create a text box. Oops. So I'll click the text tool, and I'll create a text box. Let me zoom in here, right in there, and I'll just say lorem ipsum. It's just placeholder text at the moment. I'll highlight it, go to the text panel here to the left, and the text is Roboto slab, and the size is 15. The color is actually a new color here, so it's 818181, and we'll add it to the swatches panel. And click OK. Yeah, we add it to the swatches panel by clicking this add swatch icon. Looks good, and let's see. So we've added that color, and it's aligned to the left. Perfect. So now let's work with the positioning of this element. So it's at 284 on the X. The Y is at 2709. The width is 124 and the height is 24. Responsive pinning to the center, and resize is set to none. Perfect. All right. And now I'll bring in the pasta icon. So here's the pasta icon, and here I'll click, hold, and drag, place right in there, and I'll position it somewhere underneath the chicken icon here. And for the pasta icon, let's see here, it's at 214, so 214 and then 2774 on the Y. So on the X is 214 and Y is 2774. The width is 45 by 19, responsive pin to the center, and the resize set to none. Perfect. All right, and then for the lorem ipsum, I'm just going to copy this and then hit Command V to paste, because they have the same formatting. And I'll position it somewhere here, kind of relative to these icons, and then I'll use the transform panel to reposition it. So the pasta icon is at 284, the Y is at 2775, the width is 124 by 24, responsive pinning is to the center, and the resize is set to none. Looks good. So there we have the icons and the lorem ipsum. So I'll just add the other icons real quick, and then we'll fast forward to that that part of the website. Okay, so I've added the other elements here, and now let's preview in the browser. That should be it for day 5, section 2. I'll go ahead and go to File, Preview Page in Browser, and I'll scroll down. And if I resize these elements, we can see nutrition stays relative to the center of the browser. And if I resize to the full screen, the nutrition is in a nice position relative to the other elements, and About Us looks good as well. So there we go. So About Us doesn't have any responsive pinning, and it looks good, the positioning of it around the other elements, and nutrition is pinned relative to the center, so it stays in its position here relative to the center of the browser, and it has a nice distance from the salad and also from the entree image. When we start adding breakpoints, we'll start repositioning elements, because if you notice, some elements overlap as you start resizing the browser, and we'll be adjusting that as we add breakpoints. All right, so let's make sure all the assets are accounted for. So here we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11. We have 11 assets that we've added to the section 2 part of the site. And let's go ahead and count the assets here. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11. Perfect. All the assets are accounted for, and we are now done with day 5, section 2. And again, make sure your layers panel looks like this: header, section 1, section 2, and footer. Looks good. So tomorrow we'll be moving on to day 6, section 3.
Muse for you, awesome websites without code.